Hi everyone! So today's video is going to be quite different from everything else that I've posted so far on this channel. I just figured that since I have completed every single campaign of MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries on this channel, and since at the time of filming this video, which is October of 2024, we have MechWarrior Clans coming up in a few days, actually, which is going to be a new standalone game. It's not a DLC of MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries, it's a standalone game. Although, judging from all of the video previews that I've seen so far, looks like it will share a lot of features with MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries game as well. Anyways, this video is not about that. I just thought it would be, a good idea to share a little bit of my experience with MechWarrior series in general, and talk a little bit about how I've got into this genre. So initially, growing up in the 90s as a kid, I was fascinated with flight simulations. I really like simulation games. I've played a lot of flight simulators, like F-22 titles, longbow, like helicopter simulation, many fine games that were coming out at the time, and I actually still have most of them. I have actually quite an extensive collection of flight simulator games from that era. So it was in the late 90s, I guess, when my parents bought a computer and also a lot of CDs with lots of different games, and one game which kinda caught my attention really was this legendary, classic MechWarrior 2. It initially came out in 1995, however, I think for the first time I've experienced it, I believe, somewhere around either 1997 or 1998, if I am not mistaken. So I don't have any original boxes, and these aren't even, I don't think these are even the original CDs which I had. I bought most of these games on eBay. This is like a somewhat short manual each of these booklets contains. So this was the original classic game. There has been a lot said about this. It's an absolute classic. What I particularly enjoyed about this one was how how it was able to recreate the atmosphere. This game is the most atmospheric one of all of this. So was its expansion, which came out the year later in 1996. It's called The Ghost Bear's Legacy. This is the expansion for MechWarrior 2 31st Second Combat, and as a matter of fact, you could not run this unless you had the original MechWarrior 2 CD. In order to be able to play this and to install, you had to have this CD. Yes, so that's how I originally got into this. What I particularly, like I said, what I particularly like about this game is how it recreates the atmosphere. This is the most atmospheric game of all of this series, including MechWarrior 5. It felt so futuristic at the time, and it still does actually. All of the menus, all the mission briefings, everything felt like really futuristic and kinda alien about it. And in this Ghost Bear's Legacy, I particularly liked the animations. Animations are absolutely fantastic and stunning. They are so futuristic, and I would say, despite the inferior graphics, they are even more fascinating than the ones you get in MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries, particularly the jump ship animation. This is like the best one ever in here, in my opinion. So yeah, these are the original classic games which stood the test of time. They are still fun to play even to this day. But back then, back in the day, back in the late 90s, when I was a kid and playing this, my English wasn't very good back then, and due to that, I was unable to complete certain campaigns missions, simply because I just couldn't quite understand what were the objectives and what you were supposed to do in there. So it was kind of a language barrier for me. Although I was getting kinda good at instant action missions, I was exploring different planets back then, and it was really fascinating. This game was really interesting to play, and still is to these days. It did not you know, it did not age. I think still to this day you can run this in a DOS box, you can still play it, and hopefully you will find it fascinating. Then, like I said, a year later, back in the 1996, this expansion came out, the Ghost Bear's Legacy, which had additional campaign missions, and here you are getting to play for the Ghost Bear clan. Like these ones, you have to complete the campaigns for Clan Wolf and that Falcon, whereas this one is for the Ghost Bear. Now, I've seen, actually, just out of curiosity, I've seen some reviews of the series on YouTube. And one reviewer in particular was really criticizing this Ghost Bear's Legacy expansion pack. Like, he even said that they shouldn't even bother making this one. Well, I have to disagree about this. I absolutely have to disagree about this, because I find this expansion just as good and as immersive as the original one. I really like the original game, but I also really enjoyed this one. As a matter of fact, I may have even enjoyed playing this one recently more than the original game, because the campaign and the story is quite fascinating, and it's very interesting to see how it unfolds. And like I said, these two games, like back when I was a kid, I did have both of these CDs back when I was a kid. However, due to the language barrier, like my English wasn't very good, I was unable to complete the campaigns, because I did not understand like what were the mission objectives. So I only was able to play mostly the instant actions, and I finally got to complete all of these campaigns only, like, let's say 4 years ago, when I've decided to revisit these games. So that's my story with the original MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries. It's an absolute classic, and honestly, like, what else can you say about it? There is so much has been said already on YouTube about these games, and many reviews have been made. I just don't have anything to add, except that I do really like the Ghost Bear's Legacy expansion, and what I particularly also enjoyed about this one is that besides the new campaigns, it actually introduces some new mechs. This one actually has even more mechs than the original game, and there is one particular mech that I really enjoyed there. It was a light mech called Incubus. It's quite devastating actually, depending on how you configure it. It was super fast light mech. It could run like 160 kilometers per hour, and it could be pretty deadly, like if you configure it with small pulse lasers. Like I was destroying a bunch of assault mechs just running around them in that tiny light mech. Again, it's called like Incubus. Check it out, it's fantastic thing. Yeah, and then of course there are really cool mechs like let's say assault mechs like Kodiak, for instance, and Stone Rhino. I hope we get to see those assault mechs in MechWarrior 5 Clans. Alright, so that was my story with the original MechWarrior 2 and how I've got into this series. And then let's talk about the MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries, which wasn't the expansion for the original MechWarrior 2, but rather a standalone game. It didn't really share much in common except for the mech control functions, certain mech control functions. This one also, I believe, came out in the year of 1996. Well, that's at least what the this CD says in the back. And it did, like I said, it did have certain similarities in terms of mech controls with these titles, but here you are not obviously playing for the clans, you are piloting the inner sphere mechs. You do get an opportunity later in the campaign to pilot clan mech, the Kodiak, if you get to steal it or salvage it in one of the campaign missions. But other than that, those are mostly the inner sphere mechs. So now, a lot of people out there who get to criticize MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries for the lack of certain features, and those who often refer to MechWarrior 2 and how it was more sophisticated in certain things than MechWarrior 5, for instance, those people are often being blamed for the nostalgia aspect of it. Like there is even an article on that matter which I read, like I think on Sarna.net or somewhere else, that nostalgia is a drug. Well, while I may have a certain nostalgia, let's say for MechWarrior 2 31st century combat, you cannot blame me for the nostalgia for this MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries, because even though back in the day, back in the late 90s, I remember having this CD, this game, I never actually got to play it for some reason. I've never explored it back then. And as a matter of fact, for the first time, I've got to experience it only like, let's say, 4 or 3 years ago, actually, when I installed it in a DOS box. Believe it or not, as late as 3 years ago. So I do not have any nostalgia for this title whatsoever, so you can't really blame me for that, for being nostalgic. However, despite that, I still find that this is an excellent game, which is absolute classic and which stood the test of time. Despite the inferior graphics, it is still a really fascinating game to play. I absolutely enjoyed it. It does have a few bugs and flaws, so are these games. They are not flawless. There are certain bugs and flaws, but that's okay. These are still classic games, and they are still a lot of fun to play and very fascinating. This also has some documentation in here. I don't have any original boxes, obviously, but this is some documentation here. Like, for instance, this is for the MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries. This is like a manual which shows you some, talks about some weapons, different kind of weapons, systems and mechs. It's kind of interesting to read. And then this is the MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries keyboard controls. So what I find, and I've talked a lot about on this channel, what I find interesting about the MechWarrior 2 is that how much sophisticated it is. All of these keyboard controls. It's got so many functions which are unfortunately unavailable in MechWarrior 5. I wish I could have some of those. As a matter of fact, one of the most useful features, like let's say in this game and in this one, when you're piloting the clan mechs, one of the most essential features in these games, which I cannot absolutely do without, was this so-called enhanced imaging, which clan mechs had. And I am kind of curious to see whether they are going to implement this in MechWarrior clans as well. It's absolutely necessary and absolutely useful feature that I cannot do without. Likewise, in MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries, for instance, there is that a special vision feature which is called thermograph, or a FLIR vision, and this is something that we actually have today. This is not some kind of future like science fiction technology. No, this is something that we have today and something that we actually had since Vietnam War. And they've implemented it here very well. It's so much better and more useful than that night vision that we have in MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. I fixed it with the mod, that heads-up display mod, which I use in MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. It does have this FLIR vision, which is very, very useful, but the original game doesn't have it, and it's so much more difficult to play without it. I don't know what they were thinking and why they haven't implemented it in there. They really should have, especially since, this game has it. Besides that, all of these MechWarrior 2 titles, they had lots of different camera views available, different sensors, like let's say displays. You could cycle through different displays, and you could use a very handy and useful HTAL display showing the levels of your armors in each areas. It's very useful. It's so much more useful than the kind of displays you receive in a stock MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries game. I did kinda fix it with the mod, but again, if you are unable to use mods for some reason, then you're kinda stuck with very limited options in MechWarrior 5, unfortunately. Alright, so these are the original MechWarrior 2 games. Again, I absolutely love them. They are classics, and I still love playing them to these days. They are still fascinating and the most atmospheric ones of all, especially MechWarrior 2. The original 31st century combat. Yeah, and before I finish talking about these original games, there are also interesting things about it, which aren't implemented in MechWarrior 5. I mean, again, I can go on and on describing how many features are far more superior in these games, but there is one thing which kinda bothered me about MechWarrior 5 and which was implemented here, is that, like, let's say when you are getting those moon missions on the moon, those tiny moons that don't have any atmosphere, when you get one of those missions in here, on those moons, because they don't have atmosphere and less gravity force, you could run faster and jump higher if you had the jump jets. This is something that you cannot do in MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. I don't know what they were thinking, but they've implemented those physics successfully as early as in 1995, and doesn't make any sense why we couldn't have those realistic physics in MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. I don't know what they were thinking, but this is how things are, unfortunately. Alright, so again, these are the original MechWarrior 2 games. Now let's talk a little bit about this MechWarrior 2 Titanium Trilogy. So what this thing is, basically, this is a compilation, this is a bundle of all of these three original, this is 3 CDs, this is the bundle of all of these 3 games which I've just shown you. But not just that, this is also the updated and upgraded version of all of these 3 games which I've just shown you. So what it does, basically think of it this way. This MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries was like a stand-alone game. It's not an expansion of the original clan-based games. It introduced the new features, some new features and updates which were unavailable in those earlier titles. So what the Titanium Edition did, it basically tried to bring all of those earlier games, the original 31st Century Combat and the Ghost Bear's Legacy, into the world of MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries, with all of those updated features. Besides that, it also updated graphics. It allows you to use a hardware accelerated options like 3DFX, which is like a discrete graphics card at the time, which was at the time, and then that 3DFX company eventually got bankrupted and it was bought by the NVIDIA. But anyways, so this is what this edition did, the Titanium Trilogy edition. It brought all of these games into the features of the MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries, plus certain updates. Now, just like I was saying, those other reviews which I saw on this channel of all these previous MechWarrior 2 titles, the reviewer was highly criticizing the Titanium edition of all these games because they featured a lot of bugs. They aren't perfect, there are a bunch of bugs, and he was talking how bad this Titanium edition is, and that the original games were actually better without all of these upgrades. Well, personally I tend to disagree here a little bit. I only have agree about this subject, because yes, there are some flaws in here. It's not a flawless edition by any means, and there are some minor bugs that are present. However, still, even despite some of those very minor flaws and bugs, I still think that the Titanium edition of all of these three games is actually superior, and it definitely brings some major updates and upgrades, some of which I really welcome and appreciate. Especially like the fact that when you destroy someone's leg, the mech falls down. Whereas in these older games, like let's say the original ones, if you destroy someone's leg, all of the mechs will be still standing. They won't be walking, but they will be standing like a flamingo on one leg. And I never particularly liked that aspect. Well, this Titanium edition fixes it. Mechs fall. They fall down if you destroy someone's leg, which is actually much more realistic this way. Besides that, it also includes some important upgrades, like let's say, or updates I should say. They fixed medium pulse lasers in the original MechWarrior, like 31st Century Combat and the Ghost Bear's Legacy, because the original games, all of those medium pulse lasers, for instance, they actually didn't do a whole lot of damage, hardly any damage. You had to use them a lot in order to generate some kind of damage. Well, this Titanium edition addresses its issues. Those pulse lasers, they become much more lethal, especially those medium pulse lasers, which is actually one of my all-time favorite weapons in this game. They function quite differently from MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries, for instance, because in MechWarrior 5 all the pulse lasers, they basically shoot pretty much the same way as your standard lasers. They have a certain like cooldown time, they have like a certain firing time, and then they take a break, and then there is a cooldown time. That was not the case in the original MechWarrior 2 games. The way the pulse lasers functioned there, you were able to fire them as long as you were pressing down the trigger. And that was quite devastating and lethal. Yes, they were generating a bunch of heat this way, but at the same time they generated a lot of damage, and for that matter those were pretty much like my favorite weapons in these early games. What I didn't particularly liked about, speaking of weapons, the weapons which I didn't particularly like, though, in MechWarrior 2 were the large autocannons. Large autocannons. Small ones like AC2s, AC5s were okay. Machine guns were fantastic, but the larger ones, they were running out of ammo really quickly while not generating a whole lot of damage, unfortunately. So I was trying to avoid those as much as I could and just mostly stick with energy weapons or smaller machine guns or ballistic weapons. Yeah, so once again, just to wrap this up, I do think that in general Titanium Edition is superior to the original games, because it did feature a number of important updates and upgrades. The only thing though that I would recommend if you were to run the Titanium Edition, especially like for the Ghost Bear's Legacy expansion pack, do not use the 3DFX version or the hardware accelerated version. Just use the basic software version, because especially like, let's say, in the underwater campaign mission where you're shooting some torpedoes in 3DFX version, all of those torpedoes, they were disappearing instantly as they were shot. Like they were just disappearing to nowhere. That was a serious bug in the 3DFX version. That is not the case, however, with the standard software version. So for that matter, I would not recommend you installing the hardware accelerated version. Instead, use the regular software version if you want to get the best out of the Titanium Edition. And then, like I said, I don't have any original bugs. This is the manual, really nice manual, which comes with this Titanium trilogy. It has all of those, you know, mechs, weapons, talks about, you know, different systems. And you know, all of the features of these games. It's a really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. All of these mechs specifications, you see, it's quite fascinating in here. Yeah, and again, you know, because all of these games, they have so many controls, like keyboard controls. And by the way, this table doesn't even show all of the keyboard controls. It's like shows the more important ones, but there are more than what this table shows you. And for that matter, what I found to be useful, I was actually using the joysticks and HOTAS. It's quite uncomfortable to play this game using a keyboard or mouse. Simply because, you know, there are a lot of keyboard control commands. Whereas, like, if you're using HOTAS, for instance, you can assign all of those keyboard controls to HOTAS and joysticks. So that makes it quite handy. Whereas in MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries, for instance, there aren't that many features or keyboard controls, to the point where it made my HOTAS kinda useless, and I found it more convenient to just use keyboard and mouse when playing MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. Alright, so that was MechWarrior 2. Let's now talk about MechWarrior 3 here. So this is the original box of MechWarrior 3. It's kind of damaged here a little bit, but it's really old. I think this is like somewhere from the late 90s. What's cool about it, it unfolds like this, and here you get to see the summoner. It's really cool, right? It's kinda quite rare these days, this box edition of MechWarrior 3 Mercenaries. Let's see what's inside the box. So there is another cardboard box in here, and here is what we get. This is the CD with the original MechWarrior 3 game, right? Which I believe originally came out in 1999, right? Yeah, that's what this CD says. It's from 1999. And then this one, it's the expansion pack for the original game, which is called Pirates Moon, which came out a bit later after this original MechWarrior 3 game. And again, just like with that Ghost Bear's Legacy expansion pack of MechWarrior 2, you had to have the original 31st century combat CD in order to run this Ghost Bear's Legacy MechWarrior 2 expansion. Well, that's the same thing. You were not able to play this expansion unless you had the original MechWarrior 3 CD. So what this did, it basically featured additional like 20 missions for each side. You also get to play 10 missions for the pirates. So basically you had 10 missions for the protagonist, but then also additional 10 missions for the pirates, for the antagonists. You could play for both sides in here. And then what's my favorite feature of this MechWarrior 3 game are these controls, the simulation aspects of the game, and all of these controls. There are a lot of them, a lot of different key combinations, lots of different features. I'm not sure whether the camera is going to pick up all of this, but in order to take advantage of all of these features, you kinda really had to use HOTAS. It's very difficult to play it using just a keyboard and mouse. In order to be able to take advantage of all of these functions and features, you kinda had to use HOTAS, although maybe some people will disagree about it, but you see how sophisticated this thing is. It's so many controls and features. Like for instance, one of the features that are unheard of in all other titles, let me quickly find this just so you know. Aha, right here, mech commands, for instance. Let me see if camera can pick this up. So this mech commands thing right here, just read this. You see this? So it's get up from fall and crouch stand. You see? You cannot do that in any of other titles, including MechWarrior 5. Yes, you were able to fall down in the mech, so as the enemies. All of the mechs were able to fall down to the ground, and they were able to get up from fall. You see? And then you could also crouch stand. You see, if you don't want to be very tall and expose yourself to an enemy fire, you could just lower yourself, which is very, very handy. And then, like, let's say if you are getting really hot, you could flush the coolant once or twice. It's a kind of handy feature. And the other interesting feature is that you could cool yourself down if you were standing in the water, which is unheard of in any other titles. Although based on the preliminary, those video previews of MechWarrior 5 clans, supposedly that feature is also there, like you can cool yourself down if you're in the water. But we'll see. The game is coming out in a few days. We'll see if that's true. Yeah, so lots of interesting features, and then also, like, since there are some clan mechs available in here. Where is this? I'm not sure, to be honest, whether this is a complete whether this is even a complete keyboard command list. What was also available in this game, because there are some clan mechs that you're able to pilot. You could use a targeting computer, which is available on clan mechs, and you could target specifically, like, certain parts of the mech. You could target like, let's say, cockpit or a center torso or the arm or the leg in your reticle. It's quite a handy feature, so we'll see if this kind of feature is gonna be available in MechWarrior 5 clans, although I highly doubt it. I doubt that even that useful enhanced imaging is gonna be available, but I could be wrong. I don't know what I am gonna do, to be honest, if that enhanced imaging isn't gonna be available in MechWarrior 5 clans. This MechWarrior 3 had, I don't quite remember whether it had that thermograph or not, but it had mech lights, which is kind of funny thing, like you could use a light. It's kind of funny, like, why would you use a light, why not just a thermograph, but that's the way things were in this. So this was like one of the most advanced games in this series as far as the simulation aspect is concerned, and as far as the mech control functions are concerned. This is probably like the most complete one of all of the series, so as MechWarrior 2 as well. And then here we also get this, what's that? Eridani Light Horse. You are playing here for the Eridani Light Horse Mercenaries in the original game as a protagonist. Yeah, so this is like a manual in here. Yeah, it's quite fascinating to read. Lots of useful information here. One of my favorite parts of this game was also the zoom feature. This is something similar to the mod which I am using in MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. The zoom function, I think it was like the best of all of these games. I really liked that. So lots of handy features, and then there is also some technical reference. Yes, some mechs in here, some useful information. Yeah, so fantastic features. Yeah, some ground vehicles even in here. Yeah, that's just the original CD case. So lots of fantastic useful features, and perhaps one of the most complete games as far as the mech simulation aspect is concerned. It's getting kind of dark in here. Let me just open this window, sorry. Just to make it a bit light. No, it's staying there. Alright, so Lots of useful and handy features which I wish were implemented in MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries game as well. So, even though I think that MechWarrior 3 is fantastic in terms of features, and as far as the simulation aspect of the game is concerned, there was only one problem for me with this game, which is very subjective. It's very subjective. It's okay if you disagree with me on this matter. It's fine if you love this game, but to me personally, it's very subjective again. My personal subjective opinion. One problem that I found with this game in particular when I was playing it, it's the lack of enjoyment. I did not particularly enjoy the gameplay itself and the way that the missions were structured. The briefings were kind of a pain to listen to, and then the missions themselves and the story itself, I just didn't enjoy this aspect of the game, unfortunately. I felt like I was doing a very hard work without any kind of satisfaction in return. And this game is pretty challenging. It's a pretty challenging game. As a matter of fact, I even find that some of the campaign missions of the MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries are even more fascinating and interesting than some of these. Particularly, I did not enjoy this Pirates Moon expansion pack. Some of the missions here felt to me as if the developers were running out of ideas and they didn't know what to come up with. One of the missions was absolutely silly. It's kind of like you had to protect a certain games, a lot of enemies were running, trying to run through that gate, and you had to destroy them, not let them run through it, even though there wasn't even much to destroy behind it. It was just kinda silly in my opinion. It's kinda silly, yet it is an extremely difficult and extremely tough campaign to complete. That was really hard, and just like other reviewer on YouTube said, it's true. It's a really tough game to complete, especially this Pirates Moon. Some of those missions, even on the easiest settings, sometimes are nearly impossible to complete. Like for instance the third mission here, where you had to protect the convoy. Besides being good at it, you just also need to be lucky. You're heavily outnumbered and you really need to rush to the place to protect that convoy. It's just a bunch of BS. It's so hard that it kinda kills all enjoyment. Like, it took me up to 10 attempts to complete some of the missions. Like, 20 additional missions doesn't sound like a lot, right? Well, good luck completing them on the first try. If it takes, up to 10 attempts to complete certain missions, it's just a grotesque. It's just some kind of grotesque. It's not like enough to be a good pilot, it's not enough to have a lot of skills, you just also need to be lucky in certain missions. And honestly, I don't like that. When skills and tactics aren't sufficient, you just also had to have a luck, because on a number of occasions you're just terribly outnumbered and overwhelmed by the enemies, and you cannot be at two locations at the same time. It's just kind of frustrating for that matter, so for that reason I didn't particularly enjoy this game. So that was my experience with the MechWarrior 3, and I think I honestly can't quite remember whether I played this back in 1999. I may have actually, but my memories are kind of vague. I may have had this CD, and I may have tried this for a little bit, but for the first time I fully completed the entire campaigns was again like 3 years ago, and I purchased this this package on eBay. I bought this used, I believe somewhere like in 2019, if I am not mistaken. Either 2019 or 2018, I can't remember. Yeah. So very much like I said, I thought that this game was by far the best of all series in terms of mech control features and all of the controls. I didn't particularly enjoy the campaign and the missions themselves, although I may have to give this game a second chance. Maybe I should play this again at one point, and maybe I should do it on this channel at some point. Let me know down in the comments if you would like me to explore this game on this channel at some point. But anyways, that's my experience with the MechWarrior 3 game. Let's actually put this again away, and let's now talk about the MechWarrior 4. So this is MechWarrior 4, and this is the compilation. This includes actually all of the expansions, the original game, and then further series. It's got MechWarrior 4 Vengeance, then the expansion Black Knight for the original MechWarrior 4, and then the MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries. So this one, this collection I bought on eBay. I think I was bidding on it. I bought this on auction, and I think I eventually won that bidding, and I think I bought it for something like $40 back in 2019 as well, if I am not mistaken. So there is another box inside, and there is nothing much in here, just, you know, this very small short booklet, and then 4 CDs. So this is two CDs for the MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries, as you can see, then this expansion pack, the Black Knight, and then actually we also do get 2 CDs for the Vengeance. Yeah, so 2 CDs for Mercenaries, 1 for the expansion Black Knight, and 2 for the Vengeance, the original game. Yes, so no manuals in here, just this small booklet, nothing really all that much special in here. And this game I believe came out somewhere early in 2000s. Yeah, somewhere early in 2000s. So what's my personal experience with this game? Well, honestly, I can't really talk much about it. I don't have much experience with it whatsoever. Because back in early 2000s, when this game came out, I even never heard of it, nor did I play any games back then. Back in early 2000s, I started going to college, I was focusing on my studies, and my career, I did not have time to play any video games whatsoever. I did not play anything, and I did not follow the title. For the first time I bought it was like back in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, or 19, which is like, you know, almost 5 years ago. I bought this on eBay, and here is what happened. When I bought it back then, I've run it on the computer which I had at the time, which was running Windows 10. The game was running flawlessly, and all I did, I've got to complete all of the training missions. Just the training missions. And I spent like about an hour playing this game, and that was it. I did not explore it any further because I didn't have time, and you know, life was getting in the way. I didn't have much opportunity to play games, so unfortunately I cannot comment much on this game because I just don't know, I don't have much experience with it. Sorry, my camera ran out of battery, so I had to break. Anyways, so I was talking about MechWarrior 4, and when I've got my new system a couple of years ago, which is the one I have now, it's a custom-built desktop computer. It's now running Windows 11, and recently I tried to install and run this game, and it just didn't work. I tried to research this subject on some forums, and there are some workarounds which people were talking about how to get this to run on a modern system, but I didn't have much luck. Like eventually I was able to get it to run, but it was kinda crashing all the time, and I was unable to use my HOTAS with this game. So for that matter, like I said, unfortunately I don't have much experience with this game, and I was unable to get it to run reliably on Windows 11. So maybe one day, if I will figure out how to get this to work on a modern system, then maybe I will explore this one. But so far I just didn't have any luck getting it to run. And like I said, my only experience with it was back when years ago, back when I installed this on Windows 10, which is kinda strange. It was running flawlessly on Windows 10, and I was able to use my HOTAS. I only got to play it for 1 hour and only completed the training missions. So again, I can't really comment much on this game. There was only one thing which I did kinda notice as compared to all of these earlier games, MechWarrior 2 and then this MechWarrior 3. I've noticed a simplification of mech controls and the lack of features which were previously available in the older titles, which is something which, something that we are witnessing today in MechWarrior 5. Simplification of controls and, dumbing down of a simulation aspect of the game, which perhaps may have started with MechWarrior 4, which is a little bit frustrating. I understand that they are trying to market MechWarrior 5 for the console users as well, and then when you have those primitive joysticks and limited functionality, you have to reduce a number of controls, so that's understandable. However, they should allow a more advanced option for the PC users and for people who have HOTAS. they should allow more options. They should implement more controls, like an advanced control mode. This is something they should implement, in my opinion, in MechWarrior 5. Because otherwise it feels like more of some kind of a primitive first-person shooter game, as opposed to a simulation game, which which the original MechWarrior titles were. Well, lastly, speaking of games like, let's say, MechWarrior 1, for instance, the original one, which came out in 1989. As you can see, I don't have this game, and hardly anyone does. I tried, I think I purchased it on one of the retro game sites. I tried to run it in a DOS box. I played it a little bit, but it did not captivate me. I think it did not age well. It did not stand the test of time as, let's say, MechWarrior 2 did, and it felt kinda dated. It didn't do much for me. And then, of course, there is that multiplayer game, MechWarrior Online, which I did not explore at all. I never played MechWarrior Online. I just watched a few videos, and frankly, it didn't interest me all that much. I don't know. Maybe if I will play it, I will change my opinion, but so far, based on what I've seen, I wasn't really all that much interested in the aspect of that game. So we'll see what this MechWarrior 5 Clans brings to the table. That's gonna be interesting. I am sure it's going to be an interesting storyline, from what I can understand based on the previews which I saw. The storyline looks to be very promising, which is great, but we'll see how it's gonna hold up in terms of a simulation aspect and mech controls. That's the most interesting part for me. We'll see. Anyways, well, thank you for watching. I appreciate you taking some time to watch this video. Please let me know in the comments if you would like to see any of these games on the channel. I will try to make a video if I can, if the time allows. Thanks again for watching, and until the next video. Have a nice day.